Hello. So today we're going to talk about the Evinrude Mate, which was made from 1939 to 1941. It's a half horsepower, little engine. And I have my father on the line. And so we're going to just kind of banter back and forth. Of course, he knows way more about it than I do. So I'll play the part of the learning person, and my dad is going to provide commentary about the little mate. So, hi, Dad.
Hi there, Matt. I see you found a real nice little mate. Looks nice and complete and honest, and a lot of the bad things that happen to those motors doesn't look like it's happened to that one.
When you say honest, I know that's a term we use every once in a while. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, honest means that it hasn't been cobbled together from parts of different engines or repaired in such a way uh, to make it anything but the original motor. Here we're looking at something that got put away 50 years ago and was hanging in a garage, and nobody's touched it since. So it's nice to know that it's all original.
Right. In fact, I put it on our site as garage or barn fresh.
Yeah.
That's kind of an oxymoron because it's fresh, but it's got dust on it for 50 years. So now, how do you like how I put it in the library there on a little piece of wood that comes out from the bookcase?
Well, I think that's probably very apropos because while most people don't have them in their library, most of these motors wind up as displays. They weren't very good runners. They weren't very powerful at all, and they were made to appeal to fishermen where money was a big
Mm-hmm.
concern, and
Mm-hmm.
they did power a boat uh, as long as it wasn't too big and didn't have a big headwind.
Mm-hmm.
You could get out to the fishing spot and back with one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Evinrude was the more deluxe model, and it has the covers. Um, the Cub was the Alto version, which essentially is the same motor without the all the deluxe features.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's go on to the next slide here. And this is an ad that I pulled from the internet that just shows the original purchase price of $34.50, and that it weighs 10 pounds. And um, so,
I,
do you really think these things are accurate here?
well, actually, I don't know how many fishermen there were in the United States in 1939 or 40 or
Uh-huh.
41, but I do know that later on, or I'm fairly certain later on, um, at least the Cub was sold cheaper than 34.50.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I just read in Peter Hunn's book that it went down to $29 eventually.
Well, they may be. I think Peter also references the fact somewhere that probably all of the motors were made in one great big batch in 1939, and
Mm,
it took them 3 years to sell all those motors.
wow.
When the war started, of course, all the production of outboards were was ceased, and they never brought this model back
Mm,
after the war. So
mm.
they're
So it's
kind
only
of,
3 years total. Most of the parts being made in 39, probably.
I believe so. That is certainly something that has been bantered about and is probably correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, do you think it could really run all day on a gallon?
Well, it depends on how
Right.
fast you ran it and what you
Yeah.
considered a
day.
day.
Right, right.
But if you look at that boat that those fishermen are in, very likely to get that thing to move into a headwind, you would have to run it at full speed if you wanted to make any headway or any
Hmm.
significant headway.
Right, right. Do you think this most looks like an egg beater? People have said that they've compared it to a
Well,
little egg beater.
uh, I don't think it looks like an egg beater, but then again, I don't use kitchen utensils
Yeah.
very much.
Oh, well, that's something. Let's talk about the streamlining of it. So, um, that was a big thing. It's the beginning of the streamlined look in the late 30s or the 1930s, the streamlined look.
Well, the real start of the shrouded motors was probably 1936. This motor wasn't around then, but Evinrude had a feature that they called hooded power or
Hmm.
shrouded power,
Hmm.
and it had some very stylized hood arrangements to make the 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 motors look modern. Nobody wanted to appear to be um, backwards or
Hmm.
yesterday's
Right.
generation, not
Hmm.
not hip. So
Yeah.
the Evinrudes were had the hip styling,
Uh-huh.
and this is an example of that. And these covers you see on there were very well done, and they are very nice castings.
Hmm.
So many of the Mate models wound up missing their covers,
Hmm.
and so that it's nice when you find one and it's all complete and the covers are in nice shape.
Right. Right.
But
They
that,
come off
yeah,
with five screws, three on one side and two on the other. Why is there three on the one side?
because I think the handle later on, if you show a picture of the power head, you'll
Right.
see that there are two uh, mounts inside that cover to hold the tiller handle on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for the location of the mount, which is cast into that cover, which
Mm-hmm.
holds the tiller handle, that aluminum handle you see there,
Right.
which holds that to the block.
Could they be tightened down so hard that it broke the casting?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
These motors were. You don't see it that often,
Mm-hmm.
but you these motors were very fragile,
Mm-hmm.
and any strong arm work very often broke them.
Right. Well, that's why it's so lucky. I got this one. It's so original and so good. Um, Now I do see the mag advance is tipped downward, like bent downward. Was it supposed to be like that or no?
No, I think what happened here is that may have gotten dropped,
Mm-hmm.
um, or somebody uh, just forced it downward for whatever reason, maybe
Mm-hmm.
trying to put it in a trunk of a car or something. No,
Mm-hmm.
that should not be bent down like that.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one thing I absolutely love about this engine is the font of the lettering on where it says Evinrude and with the red background and the teardrop, which is it looks like a wing cross section of a wing. Where it says Evinrude, and then my favorite is the mate in block letters where it says mate. I mean that is just that might be my favorite font of any outboard.
Mm. Well, they definitely wanted to make it look futuristic, and
Mhm.
you can see almost the aircraft uh, effect
Mhm.
around the badge where it says
Mhm.
"mate." There's kind of
Yeah.
like wings coming out of
Right.
the side.
Right.
This is all. Um, and look at if you look right above the mate, you'll
Hmm.
see that there's almost like an Art Deco
Right.
kind of
Yeah. Like,
treatment to that ridge
right.
line.
Like the Empire State Building or something. Yeah.
This is, these are little nuances that are all adding up to, you know, uh, futuristic styling.
Yeah, and beauty. I mean, this
Yeah.
is, I mean, you take a plastic cowling from, a 1980s, half horse, and it's like, it doesn't even match up. I mean, there's no comparison. And
Yeah.
this is hilarious. It's got streamlining, like this half horse would go faster because you know, it's streamlined.
Well, I
Right.
think they learned a lesson from these motors that
Mhm.
the making a motor that small and that light was just not, um, they didn't last.
Mhm.
Um, they were well done, but they were sold for a price point. And
Mhm.
they did, when they came back after the war, they probably figured that 2 horsepower was about 1.5 to 2 horsepower was as small as they felt they could make a motor and make it dependable.
Right. Right. Now this gas cap is like anodized gold. Yeah, do you think that's original or?
I don't know. I think the cap is the right size and the right shape,
Mhm.
but my guess is that it came from another Evinrude model, or possibly even another brand.
Mhm.
Um, I'm thinking that uh, they may not even have made those gas caps, that they bought them um,
Mhm.
from a supplier outside, and
Mhm.
so that supplier may have sold them to Neptune or
Right.
Johnson or somebody else.
Right. But how about if the fishermen lost the cap years later and they went to reorder it?
That could, yeah, that
Yeah.
almost anything's possible with these
Right.
motors.
Right.
Um, it's been so long.
Yeah. So here's a picture with the cowlings off. You see the tank is really nice. There's no lumps or anything because the cowling
Covers,
probably protected it, right?
the covers protected
Yeah.
it, and uh, you just see that they may rust out, but they don't get dented with the covers on them
Right.
to protect them.
Yeah. So this rope sheath's got Evinrude and Elto. I thought Elto was the cut rate version.
It was, and remember they used basically the same motor without the covers. And they
Hmm.
called it an Elto Cub. It
Mm.
was even cheaper
Yeah.
than the Mate,
Wow.
and it didn't have the nice stylized covers. So
Mhm.
the Mate was um, the Chevy Bel Air, and the the Cub was the Chevy Biscayne or
Yeah.
Bel Air, and the Mate was the deluxe Impala,
Ah.
the line. So
Yeah. But they shared the same rope sheath to save money, probably.
yeah, yeah. Well, that would, rather than make two different rope
Right.
sheaths when one would
Right.
suffice.
Even look how the rope coils around the nut. I mean that's like elegant.
That is a high quality casting, and you know to get the lettering that clean out of a casting, takes a real nice pattern and one
Mhm.
that will last over a long
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
so that they can make a lot of parts out of it.
Made in the USA. Love that
Yes,
logo right there.
yeah.
Looks
This
good.
is specifically uh, poignant because Evinrude just announced, or
Oh, right.
BRP just announced, that Evinrude is shut down. And
Right. Right. So that is quite a newsworthy event in the world of outboarding and boating. That's for
mhm,
sure.
certainly is.
Yeah. All right. So describe the numbers matching part here.
Well, just like cars, very, very often, um, what people are looking for is matching numbers.
Mhm.
Well, there's an ID tag, which you can see, I think, in the upper, that's a serial number tag that's in the
Mhm.
crankcase.
Mhm.
That plug with the serial number on it has to match the ID number, which is on the ID tag, for the engine to be original.
Unmolested.
Original.
Correct. Yeah.
And when you're dealing with Cubs, which don't have the covers, very often what you find is a Cub, a motor that's masquerading as a Cub, but was really a Mate, and the covers got lost and thrown
Mm.
away. And the only way to tell for sure is with that
Number.
plug, the numbers on that plug, because they had different series numbers for the Cub and the Mate.
Right. So this engine block and carburetor are all one piece, huh?
That's one casting,
Yeah.
which there are pieces that come out of that carburetor, but the crankcase and the carburetor is cast as one piece. And my
Was
guess is
that uncommon, or was that done before?
it has been done on a number of motors, but in this particular case, I think it was done as an economy move.
Mm.
Rather than make two separate parts and all of the procedures needed to mate them together in assembly, they made the crankcase and the carburetor body as one piece.
And it's aluminum, right?
Yeah, it's. I believe those are die-cast aluminum castings.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So what about the handle here? It seems bent. What do you think happened there?
Well, I think somebody over tightened it to make sure it didn't come off the transom of the boat, and they probably put a pipe or a big pair of pliers on the thing to tighten it down even tighter so it wouldn't come off the boat.
And you said that lots of times right here at the transom clamp it would break. Was it because of that over tightening, or?
No, I believe it was, there was a stress point there that was rather, when the motor vibrated and tipped up, it would break. And a lot of the motors you see have broken and re-welded, badly re-welded castings.
Mm-hmm.
Right behind and to the right of the ID plate.
Mm.
Yeah, that's where they break, right in there.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, so here's where the tiller handle goes with the two screws.
Right. The matching part to that is cast inside the cover.
Mm-hmm. And so this like rubber grommet that's melted right here, that would try and reduce the vibration, I guess?
Yeah, it was an insulator to keep the vibration of the propeller and the motor as it was running, to try to dampen that. It wasn't very successful, and as you can see, the rubber didn't have a very long lifespan. Now, this one may have sat in a really hot garage at one point in time, and that rubber just deteriorated.
Oh, that reminds me that the coil actually has sparks. So that's somewhat amazing. Isn't that unusual on these?
Yeah, very, very few of those motors had a good coil in it. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I was noticing is if you go back to the picture of the side of the motor where the plug is, look at the bottom lip of the flywheel. Looks like somebody been banging on that.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And my guess is they were trying to remove the flywheel by banging on it, which is definitely not what you want to do with that little motor.
Right. They maybe the coil's been replaced.
Well, that could very well be. They Or maybe you just got lucky and you got one that survived.
Yeah. So this is looking at the cylinder without the spark plug in it. It's really difficult to get the spark plug. Now the spark plug wasn't tight in there, so it wasn't that difficult. But it's tough to get a wrench because it's such a small little nestle in there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, everything was kind of compact to make it smaller and lighter. I think it's kind of ironic that in the background you have that big honking black Mercury,
Yeah.
and probably the coil and the fuel pumps on that weigh more than this whole little engine does.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice juxtaposition there.
I don't know if you did that intentionally or not, but
no, totally unintentional. So, all right. So, thanks for watching, everybody, and I encourage you to check us out at oldoutboard.com. We may not have a mate for sale, or we might. So that's the thing. You got to keep checking out our website for complete motors, for parts. If you don't see it, then give us an email right there, theoldoutboard@gmail.com, and we will answer you expeditiously. So signing off in Tampa, Florida, I'm Matt.
And I'm Doug in Bernardston, Massachusetts now. So stay with us and watch often.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, dear. We're doing a Zoom thing.